Welcome back to the second part of our special podcast series with Integrity Tree Financial. I'm Shayan, your guide through the intricate world of real estate and mortgage finance. In our first episode, we explored some of the key trends and insights shaping the mortgage industry today. If you missed it, be sure to check that out for some foundational knowledge. In this episode, we're continuing the conversation with more in-depth discussion and expert advice from my colleague Patrick Soy, the principal mortgage broker at Integrity Tree Financial. We'll be tackling some of the more complex aspects of mortgage planning, answering the questions you didn't even know you should be asking, and sharing personal stories from the front lines of the industry. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, there is something here for everyone. Let's get started. Okay, welcome back, Patrick. Can you share your journey to becoming a principal mortgage broker?
Yeah, so my journey becoming the principal broker, it's funny how everything kind of worked out. After I left, obviously, the corporate side, I ended up being more independent, joining another brokerage. I was going to build this whole sales team and be external because they were more inside sales. And I said, let me take it on. That didn't work out. Just the brokerage had a different model. Then I ended up going to another brokerage, which was like a friend of mine. And I always said to him, I said, the next step I take, I don't know if I'm going to be here forever, but all I know is that I'm going to one day open up my own brokerage. And I said, probably I'm going to plan in the next year or so. And then, one day I got that a message on LinkedIn from good old Asif. Said, nice. Hey,
what are how you got to know each other?
No, we knew each other from years ago, but we just didn't really communicate much after I left, right? Because I was his representative. When I worked at MCAP, I was their business development manager. So I used to oversee Toronto, GTA, national accounts, and even Atlantic Canada. And back in my old role, and Asif was his brokerage was Integrity Tree Financial, was overseen by myself. So got to know some of the agents at that time, got to work with them, but didn't really have like much personal and like a personal relationship with them. Anyways, Asif had messaged me. We reconnected. He had asked me what my future plans were. He wanted to kind of step down from mortgages so he could focus on growing more the insurance investment side and the accounting division as well. We talked, I just said, well, why me out of thousands of other brokers? And, I think those conversations always led to the way I had, portrayed myself, put myself out there, how I communicated and all that. But my end goal was obviously to open up a brokerage one day. And I looked at it and said, okay, I can either start things from scratch, doing, from ground up, or I can go in partnership with Integrity Tree Financial, with Asif, and scale this because it was also in a team that was already built, and I could probably help elevate things quicker. I was always stuck in this. I want this to be my dream. I don't want this to be somebody else's dream, right? And I said, but if I join him, then I'm giving up my brand, my company, the things I'm starting to build, because I had already invested into, a different brand at the time.
You pretty much made this your own brand now.
Yeah.
Right?
And then, joining with Asif afterwards, I was always like, okay, give me some time to think, because I need to decide whether I'm willing to give up my other brand for this. But then I had to let my ego down and say, I'm not just building a dream for myself. I can build this dream together with Asif, right? And it took a lot of conversations because I'm not somebody who is all about the fluff and, all that type of stuff. I really look for people that are about honesty, transparency, and, are go-getters, ambitious, driven, and are willing to take accountability, when things go wrong or whatnot. But, and that was the thing. So we negotiated for a couple months or so, and then I decided to make that jump. I initially came in as their executive vice president. And then from there, the end goal was that I was always going to be principal broker, but we were going to transition slowly so that he could obviously speak with the team. And then, I became principal broker literally probably a month right after. I think we tried doing it. We said, let's wait until the new year or end of December. But for me, it's like, what's the point? Let's just do it now, right? Just like, for example, expanding to Alberta, it was, Pat, hey, you know what? Let's wait a couple years.
Oh, wow.
And I said,
I'm glad you didn't.
right? So I said, well, he's like, you're really pushing this, hey? And I said, well, you know what? Just let's just think about it, right? Keep in mind, I also had an agent also in Alberta at the old network, so that kind of expedited things. But with that even being said, you know, we think we have all these timelines, but I think in business, yes, it's great to have a business plan and these timelines and this and that, but you also have to be prepared for the unprepared, right?
You have to be spontaneous. A lot of like situation you have
exactly.
to just...
And it made sense. I was from Calgary, born and raised, so why not expand into the Alberta market? But I think I'm also the principal broker there as well for both divisions, Alberta and also Ontario. You know, so it's been a good journey, but even I didn't even expect to be where I was today if I had to look back, because I thought I was going to be slowly building a company, building a team, and to be part of something that was already existing, with obviously the credits due to Asif also building his business this way. But I think, you know, to collaborate and bring in another partner, it's always a good thing. I always say 2 brains are better than 1, right? I think I bring more of a youthfulness to the table. He brings probably a bit more of an oldness to the table.
Teamwork, right?
But it
you
works.
Always have like things that the other party doesn't have.
Yeah, he'll probably kill me for saying that. But look, you know, at the end of the day, it was also, he's a very family oriented person, and he wanted to spend more time with his family, and he was having a newborn child, his 3rd kid coming in. So I always said to him, I will come in, I will help support that, and I do want you to spend more time. Don't worry about me. All I ever said to him, be honest with me, be transparent with me, and if I come in, you need to let me make the decisions. Act more as an advisor, but you need me to make my own mistakes. You need me to allow me to make certain decisions. I just don't want somebody overriding everything, because if that's how you...
micromanaging.
Yeah, if you do that, then I'm not going to stay for long. I'll just up and leave, right? But yeah, so things have obviously worked out. He's been a great business partner to work with, and obviously being able to grow with the team and our expansion. That's that's my journey as a principal broker.
What are some of the key lessons that you've learned in this journey?
Key lessons and journey, I would say overall, you really have to be... One of the key things I've learned was I have to be more patient with myself, right?
And with people.
Yeah, and with people at times, right? I always have to remember that I'm not them and they're not me, right? We all have different levels of learning and ways of doing things, but sometimes, obviously, when you're operating a business, you need processes in place and procedures in place that need to be aligned, right? Personalities can always be a little bit different. That's fine, and that's what makes everybody unique, and our brokerage very unique, right? I would say, yeah, the patience thing, more or less of patience now. I think living more in the present moment, right? Because I was always somebody who was always a go-getter, and
I think you still are.
I still am,
yeah.
Right?
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think that will ever go away.
Yeah.
I think that's just me and my work ethics. And look, I love it. I love me for that, and I feel like if I'm not that ambitious, driven person, if people don't see it, then, you know, especially the team, I want them to also be, you know, driven and ambitious, and to see that their leader is still working hard and going out there. And, you know, yes, there's going to get to a point where I don't want to work as hard, but at least I can teach everybody or those around me that's continue to stay with us to say, this person made a huge impact on my career and my life. They taught me certain things, and, you know, seeing them, how they were working, they taught me how to work this way too, right? And it's all about leaving a legacy. I would say that was the biggest, one of probably the biggest thing I've learned throughout is, you know, patience is always something that's a work in progress, but more so living in the present moment and appreciating the things that you do have in life. Because I used to be the person where, you know, all these accolades didn't matter, all these accomplishments I was doing, I was like, what's the next thing I need to focus on? And I couldn't just really take it in and absorb it and be appreciative of what I've achieved, those that are around me, reflect on all of that, and, you know, just being humble and just saying thank you, not just to the people, but I think thanking myself for myself to pushing myself to get there.
How do you stay motivated and continue to grow in such a demanding field?
How do I stay motivated? Well, clients that make you motivated, right?
They can demotivate you.
They can also demotivate you, yes. But that's also a reality. I also say the agents, right? Same with agents. Agents can motivate us. They can also demotivate us. I think it's just making sure that everybody is doing their best, all right? And I think when you're in a leadership role, you have to always know that as much as they're responsible for themselves, you're also responsible for them. So you kind of have to lead by example, doing what's best, giving them tools, resources, pushing them, figuring out why, if business is not coming in, why is business not coming? What are some of the challenges that you're coming across? How can I help you, right? I'm big on the coaching aspect of things and working with some of our agents. We do role playing, right? If they're not comfortable, if they don't know how to network, because these are skill sets you have to learn. I think that type of stuff really motivates me most, is knowing that I have the ability to help somebody who wants my help and also maybe needs my help, right? Now, it also comes down to that individual. Like, are they reciprocate of it? Do they want that? Do they need it? Right? Even though you might think they need it, and they might say, well, I don't.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, coaching, when you're coaching somebody, you can only coach those that actually want to be coached, right? Not everybody on the team is coached. Some are more senior than others. They don't need it, but they might need me for that one, escalation or that issue there, or something they can't figure out. And again, if I don't know the answers, we'll find the answers. And I would say the team really motivates me, because knowing you're responsible for the business and the brokerage and 22 agents and continue to grow, that it's your baby, right? It's your family. You're taking care of your house.
You make them grow, and you get satisfaction from that. What habits or practices have been most beneficial in your career or your personal life?
Some practices
or habits.
I do a lot of self-reflecting, and not just, I would say something I lacked, and I think when something that's very key is that I believe everybody needs to self-reflect. Because if you can't get to the point of self-reflecting, how does one change if they don't know what's wrong, right? Whether it's good or bad, you got to take moments at times, whether it's every day. Some people obviously will do the meditating. Some people will go play sports. Some people will go work out. Sometimes for me, it's just simply as like going to the lake and just reflecting on things and just writing things, down, or, just having peace and quiet. Now, for me, I live right in the downtown core of Toronto, right?
Which is impossible to have that.
Busy. It's always that, right? So having those peaceful moments for me just to reflect on what's going on with the business, what's going on with life, personal, how can I be a better human being? How can I be a better leader? Am I doing enough for the team? I think those are things of self-reflection for me, right? That's one best practice. The other thing I would say is always continuously learn, right? It's crazy because it took me almost 20 years to get where I am to learn where I need to learn, right? But now with the advance of technology and everything that's going on, because a lot of things are taken away that people don't necessarily need to learn how to manually do things much anymore, right? It's become easier for people to learn. So what I learned in 20 years, somebody can learn probably in maybe 5 or 10 years nowadays, right? So that's something, is continuously learn about technology, advancing that efficiency, growth. If you're not somebody with a growth mindset and you said, I'm okay just doing what I'm doing, that's not somebody that I would have necessary on my team, right? Because for us, if you're not growing, then the business is not growing, right? Adaptability means a lot. You have to be able to adapt to the market, the economy. But yeah, I would say keep on learning as much as you can, because that never stops, especially in this industry.
In this industry and in this world, right? Exactly. You have to be continuing, no matter what field you're in, and you have to be learning and updating yourself on a daily basis.
Exactly.
If not hourly basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Given the current economic environment, what are your predictions for interest rates over the next year?
Yeah.
pretty much answered that,
Yeah.
but I would like to
I would say,
emphasize on it again.
well, so my predictions are usually, what's going to happen maybe in the next 6 months, maybe 12 months. I know some will try to predict it 18 months out. One thing we also have to remember, economists are there to predict. Nobody really holds that magic 8 ball to actually know the truth of what's going on, because sometimes Bank of Canada is unpredictable, right?
They are, yeah.
Many things are unpredictable. You never know. Did we expect a pandemic to happen? No, but it happened, right? So I think if I look at where the market is shifting, I do believe that there will be some stability in the market come probably near closer to the end of 2025. I do think rates will drop, maybe not drastically, but I do. Let's hope.
But I think we need to drastically drop the rate in order to avoid the recession. Like what I see in the condo market specifically, in the market is they're not good signs.
Yeah, but the reason why I say that, even though we know that rates were supposed to drop back in April this year, we have no control over the Bank of Canada or our finance minister, right? Sometimes right decisions are made and sometimes the wrong decisions are made, right? I think the main primary thing is getting inflation down below 2%. And that has been the primary goal. If we can get inflation down, now I know there are people that will say, okay, well, if you take the mortgages out of the inflation aspect of things, yes, we are technically below 2%. But unfortunately, that's not how it's being calculated or factored in when we
at the end of the day, I look at what's going out of my pocket. So if you're taking like mortgages out or fuel prices out, then
exactly,
I think that number is not really reflective.
I do believe the Bank of Canada will drop its overnight rate a few more times, which will be good. I think the biggest indicator will come September and then again October. I think it's time for rates to come down. I think borrowers and in general the public and everyday people are struggling, right? There's still a lot of unemployment happening. Corporations are laying people off. As much as the tech industry was growing, it was also laying off a lot of people, right? We see what happens and with these big corporations. Even in the finance industry, there was layoffs that happened last year, even the year before that. So not as drastic as back in 2008. That was a crazy time, right? The impact today is not as drastic as the impact back then when we had the credit crisis. I specifically remember working for a financial institution, and when that happened, about almost, say, 170 people got laid off at the company I was working for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was just a one shot. Then it happened
again.
What was that?
20?
About 2000. It was when did it start? I would say probably around 2009, 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
That's when I first came to Canada.
Was it?
2010.
Yeah. I was just a baby, and I remember going into my boss's office, and it said, "Am I going to get laid off?" And they said, "Don't worry about it. We're not basing on who's been here the longest. It's all based on performance." All right. So I remember being part of a company that was like 300 ish, and then all of a sudden that happened, and then people got laid off. I survived that. Then there was multiple more layoffs happening. Right, and then all of a sudden the company went from 300 to maybe about, let's say, 120 people left. The 120 people left. There was another company that bought out the company I was working for, and then I was like, another layoff's happening, right? Because they had to sell the mortgage business. And I said, what's going to happen? And then all of a sudden that ended up happening. I survived that, and then we were down to maybe 20 people from the original company, and thankfully, still. Grateful.
From 300 people to 20 people.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
20 people. We were sat in sat in the hotel boardroom, and we were being told, "Hey, everybody right now is currently being laid off. You are remaining." And this was back in Calgary. And then I ended up joining when that acquisition happened. Was part of a company again of like 500, and then that company ended up being about 1,500 plus. Right, so. It's crazy to kind of go through the ups and downs of it, but seeing the volatility of the market, right, of what's been going on. But that was a very tough time because the people that you work with and that you kind of treat them like they're family. You see these mothers and these fathers and people who have kids and they're going through issues, marital issues or not, or whether it is, alcohol, people who are alcoholics and that type of stuff, their story because you worked with them and they're telling you these things, right? And to see that happen when you, one, get to stay and they're being let go and you're asking yourself, how did I get to stay, but they got laid off, right? So that was a very emotional time, but that was a major impact that I saw, back then, how many people were being laid off. There were so many industries, many institutions at that time. Yeah.
That's scary. I hope that won't happen again.
Let's hope not.
We're almost there, but hopefully. Yeah,
I know I took away from the predictions of what's going to happen in the future, but yeah, I think that only inflation will tell in time if it goes down. I think there's people are back and forth whether it's going to be a soft landing or a hard landing. Obviously, we have a hard landing that can obviously impact delinquencies.
So now, how should buyers and investors adjust their strategies accordingly in this environment?
One, find properties that are actually going to increase your cash flow, right? I think that's a big thing. I'm seeing a lot of investors these days that are wanting to tap in not just in single family units, not one single unit. They want either duplexes, triplexes, fourplex, multi, right? Whether it's even converting a triplex into a fourplex or taking a fourplex, converting into, multi-unit, 6-unit property. There is ways of you increasing that cash flow. Some people are even creating laneway houses. That's another revenue of cash flow coming in. And that's a great thing that has been improved in, Toronto or Ontario. So that there's many ways for investors to tap into it. It's just finding that good deal. And while interest rates are obviously still relatively high, there's still reasonable properties that they can buy. Now, I think we're looking outside Toronto, maybe not, unless you're going to go into the condo space, right? But I think that's only those single units. If you're wanting to build something much bigger with 3 or 4 or 5 units, then you probably want to go outside of the GTA to kind of see if there's opportunity there, whether it's going to be
a lot of opportunities out there actually.
Student housing.
Especially like I have clients in North Bay.
Exactly.
They're doing very well. Like the cap rate on those properties are pretty high. The price of those properties are quite low still.
Yeah.
But it's not going to remain that way for too long,
No, it's not going to remain that way forever, right? But I think right now, if the investors are looking to do that, capitalize on it, build some appreciation in those properties, especially if you're going to renovate, convert. You're already increasing the value of a property if you do that, and then get renters in, and making sure that it's a stable market or area that you're tapping into. So there is opportunity a lot for investors to still get into the game. Just I think if you're tapping and saying, I want to start investing in Toronto and buying, unless you want to buy 3 or 4 or 5 condos, still got to look at the market, and you got to look at, okay, is my mortgage payment going to cover, is my rent?
Your rent payment going to cover all the costs, not just the mortgage payment.
But that's most things, it's at least going to cover my P&I of my mortgage payments, right? We know that condo fees and stuff and all that's going to be carrying costs, and ideally you want that to be covered. But when you're in the negative, is it really worth it? Some might be okay with it. They might say, okay, go into a 1-year term, pay the high costs, and hopefully, properties will change, it'll appreciate, and then refinance later. But it's hard to say, that's not a 1-year plan. I think if anything, you got to look at that, 2
long
years
time,
out.
like 5-10 years minimum in this market at least.
Yeah.
What's your take on the real estate market in Toronto specifically?
I think obviously not enough supply when it comes to more detached homes. I think in the Toronto condo space for apartments and stuff, I feel like we're oversaturated. But, some people, it's funny because I was talking to a couple private lenders, and they said that they were kind of scaling back in the condo market of Toronto, and they were basing it based off whether condos had a parking stall or not. And I said to them, do they know that we live in Toronto? Not most people have parking, right? It's a metro city. A lot of renters, students that come here, international students that come here, young professionals. Not many people are driving in the city, right? Everybody's either walking or taking.
And the parking prices are quite high in Toronto.
So
you want to buy a parking
it was
spot,
fascinating
like
to hear that.
200,000.
But I think there's always, if we look at lending institutions in general, even whether it's Toronto or not Toronto, we're seeing it even in Calgary as well, or Edmonton, is that there are concerns that the condo space is oversaturated, because when companies or these lending institutions are looking at their book of business, they're saying, what's the ratio of detached homes versus condos, right? How many of these condos are micro condos below 500 square feet? Is that going to be a risk to us? What are the potential rents? Are rents declining or rents increasing, right? So are property taxes increasing or are they declining? Who knows, right? The condo fees, they know they're always going to go up. But I do believe that if you buy the right condo, if you're looking to invest or you want to increase some other cash flow, buy a two-bedroom condo, if anything. So at least this way you can rent out one of the other bedrooms to a roommate if you're open to that, okay? But if you're buying a one-bedroom to live in, that's your primary residence, I get it. But if you're wanting to look at it from an investment standpoint, I would probably say if it's going to be your first property, you can probably still make some money off of it. You could do Airbnb. Now, keep in mind, there are
a lot of restrictions for Airbnb in Toronto.
So that's something you got to keep in mind. But if you're even looking to buy in Alberta, not as restricted. So there are a few things that you can keep in mind.